Boston, summer of 1962. A city of cobblestone streets, flickering streetlights, and homes hushed in the stillness of night. But beneath that calm facade, a shadow was stalking. He didn't knock. He didn't need an invitation. All he needed was for you to be alone, and he'd turn your night into your final nightmare. This is the story of the Boston Strangler, a faceless phantom, a demon in human skin. Listen closely, but don't turn off the lights, because you won't want to be left in the dark after this. June 14, 1962. Anna Sleezers, a 55-year-old woman, lived alone in a modest apartment in Back Bay. She was quiet, reserved, a lover of classical music. That night, she played a Beethoven record, the piano notes echoing through her small room. But then, the music stopped. Not because the record ended, but because a pair of cold hands had found her throat. He was there, inside Anna's apartment, but no one heard his footsteps. The door wasn't locked, or maybe he knew how to open it without leaving a trace. Anna didn't have time to scream. He silently slipped the belt from her bathrobe around her neck, tightening it like a snake strangling its prey. She clawed at the air, her nails desperate for something to grasp, but he was stronger, colder. He squeezed until her eyes glazed over, until her last breath slipped away. And then, in a sick ritual, he tied a neat little bow with the belt around her neck, a grotesque gift for whoever found her. When the police arrived, they found Anna sprawled on the floor, her dress torn, her body posed as if pleading for life. But no one came to save her. No one heard a thing. He had melted back into the night, a ghost without footprints. Anna was just the beginning. Over the next 6 months, Boston became a deadly chessboard, and he was the master player. He didn't pick his victims at random, he chose the lonely, the ones no one would miss for hours, or forever. Nina Nichols, 68, strangled with the stockings she'd hung to dry. Helen Blake, 65, found with a purple face, her eyes wide as if still staring at her killer. Ida Erga, 75, left sitting in a chair like a broken doll, a bow tied around her neck as a mocking signature. He didn't rush. He savored every moment. Each victim was a twisted painting he crafted with blood and fear. He rummaged through their belongings, but took nothing of value, except their lives. His only calling card, those bows, like the mark of death itself. Bostonians started locking their doors, but they didn't know, locks couldn't stop him. Then, in late 1962, he changed. He grew tired of older women. He wanted a new challenge, younger prey, faster prey. Sophie Clark, 21, a college student, died on December 5. She was studying in her tiny apartment, the desk lamp casting light on an open book. He knocked, or maybe he didn't. Sophie never had a chance to run. He pinned her to the floor, his rough hands tearing her blouse, the black silk stockings wrapping around her throat like an invisible chain. She thrashed, she screamed, but her cries were swallowed by the cold winter night. When the police found Sophie, she lay there, eyes wide, mouth agape as if trying to speak but couldn't. The bow was tied more carefully this time, as if he were perfecting his craft. He didn't stop. Patricia Bissett, 23, killed in her own bed, blood soaking the sheets. Beverly Simons was different. He stabbed her 22 times with a knife before strangling her, as if testing a new game. Boston trembled. Young women stopped going out alone. Mothers bolted their windows. But he was still out there, lurking in the shadows, waiting. January 4, 1964. Mary Sullivan, 19, had just moved into a new apartment in Boston. She was young, hopeful, unaware that this night would be her last. He came, silent as a shadow. Mary was washing dishes in the kitchen when she felt a chill at her back. She turned, and that was her final mistake. He didn't hurry. He pinned Mary to the ground, his brutal hands clamping around her throat. She fought, her nails raking his arms, but he only laughed, a laugh no one heard, but you can imagine how cold it was. He violated her, then strangled her with the white stockings she'd washed that morning. When Mary stopped moving, he propped her against the wall, legs spread, her face pale as porcelain. And then, in a sick farewell, he tucked a New Year's greeting card between her toes, the words Happy New Year smeared with dried blood. That was the last time he struck. Or at least, the last we know. After Mary, the killing stopped. But the story didn't end. In 1965, a man named Albert DeSalvo stepped into the light. He wasn't caught for murder, he was arrested for burglary and assault. But then, from behind bars, he spoke, I am the Boston Strangler. He recounted details, how he broke in, how he chose his victims, how he tied those bows. He knew things the police hadn't released. But something was off. No fingerprints. No witnesses. Just the word of a madman. DeSalvo was sentenced to life, but not for the 13 lives he claimed. He died in prison in 1973, stabbed through the heart by an unknown inmate. Before he died, he whispered to his lawyer, "It wasn't all me." And so, the Boston Strangler faded into the void, or did he? 13 women dead. 13 bows. One confessor, but a dozen unanswered questions. Was Albert DeSalvo truly the Boston Strangler? Or was there another phantom still out there, mocking us from the dark? DNA in 2013 linked him to Mary Sullivan, but what about the others? How many hands tightened those silk stockings in the night? And if DeSalvo wasn't the only one, where is the other killer now? Tonight, when you lock your door, check it again. Because somewhere out there, in the shadows, there might still be a pair of eyes watching you, and a pair of hands waiting.